Okay, now welcome to Astrology Unplugged. I'm Rick DiClemente in the Pittsburgh area. Welcome aboard. Nice to have you. Tonight we're going to be talking about this rumor, this panic that goes around. It's an unbelievable story, really. Wait till you hear this. About the 13 signs. People are panicking. My sign has changed. I'm no longer a Sag. I'm now this. I'm Ophiuchus. That's the 13th sign. His name is Ophiuchus. He's trying to wedge his way down into the Zodiac between Scorpio and Sag. And I say anybody's nuts to try to get between Scorpio and Sag, don't you think? Mm-hmm. I think I'd try some other adjacencies before that. Matter of fact, I've even thought of writing a book someday about the pairs. You know, a lot of Geminis have planets in Cancer. A lot of Leos have planets in Virgo. And there's no book out there that I know of that writes about the pair, because I'm always dealing with Virgos that have a lot of Leo, and I have to settle that argument. I'm dealing with Scorpios that have a lot of Sag. And I think there's a book there, just haven't written it yet. Anyhow, we'll be with you till 9:30, free every week at 8 o'clock Eastern. What drove me, as you know, I was telling somebody today what my show is, and I've really looked for this show for a long time. I've been doing it since 78, and it took me a long time to get to this point. And what I call this is my fireside chat without the fireplace. So that's what this is. And what that does is let me off the hook. I don't have to follow a syllabus. I don't have to teach a whole course. You can sign up for free astrology all over the web and get yourself a course. It wears me out. I've had too much of it since 82. So this is a hit or miss class. We talk about lots of things, current events, the election, unfortunately, etc. And what's bouncing around today is somebody started this thing again about there being 13 signs, something NASA did that made people think the Zodiac is wrong, and all of us astrologers have had it wrong all this time, and there's really 13 signs. They put out different dates. People are just so clueless about astrology, and it's understandable. I'm going to explain to you about that. Also, what always comes up behind this story is the story of, oh my God, there's two Zodiacs, and the astronomers use one, and the astrologers use one, and the astrologers have been wrong all these years. Oh, wrong. I'm going to explain that to you too. So let's get started. How many of you, before I start babbling, how many of you heard in your areas this last 4 or 5 days, the signs of the Zodiac have changed? Yeah. Oh, and I got Scorpio tattoo, and I got to take my tattoo off. What am I going to do? Some of you have not. I'm going to tell you about how it came about. All right. In January of 2011, this will knock your socks off. On January the 4th of 2011, it happened. On January, 7 days later, January 11th, I got knocked over. I felt it happen. It took me a week to figure out. It took me a week to figure out what had gone on from the 4th to the 11th, and I figured it out, and it was massive. Here's what happened. In 2011, on January 4th, everybody started freaking out over this again. Oh, there's 13 signs, and my sign has changed, and what's with the Zodiac, and all this, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't just that, because that rears its head all the time, this discussion, this misinformation. But I was enamored with how it was just going nuts. It was all over the world. It was powerful. It was everywhere. It was really big. And when big things happen, that means big planets are behind it, or it can't have it. This was not some Gemini thing in the news. This was not some Mercury retrograde. This was massive stuff, and I had to start researching. Well, it doesn't take you long to figure out. If you're a Taurus, you're not a Gemini, etc. And if you're a Sag, what Ophiuchus is this. What they did, let me get to the right desktop. Okay, let's see here. I got to get the right window up here. Okay, there you see the constellation of Ophiuchus. He's a very big man. He's called the Hunter, and he's got a great big serpent wrapped around his shoulders. And his foot touches the zodiac right between Sagittarius and Scorpio. Scorpio is 30 degrees. It's all through here. Sag is all through here. And for whatever reason, they freaked out and said, Ophiuchus is the 13th sign. We're going to put him in the middle here. Well, that ain't happening. There were reasons in mythology. There were reasons for this. And people went nuts with the story. Now there's 13 signs. So what's crazy about it is each sign of the zodiac has to have exactly 30 degrees. Times 12, 360. Well, all of a sudden, you got one sign with 20, one sign with 14, one sign with 37. It just doesn't fit. It's not harmonic. It doesn't work in any way. So, but you have to understand these things happen for a reason. They're not accidents. Why did Ophiuchus raise his head? So I started researching. Now remember, his foot touches the zodiacal belt. The zodiacal belt. Zodiac means the zoo of animals. So I was enamored with how strong it was, how people were really feeling it. So what I did is I found out that what spurred it on the conscious level was somebody had asked this Professor Parkle, I think it is, this community college assistant professor of astronomy. They asked him about this. He didn't know anything about astrology, so he shouldn't talk about it. And he said, oh, by the way, these astrologers are wrong. He printed this in the Minneapolis paper. There are 13 signs. And by the way, they're wrong anyway because they're two different zodiacs. Astronomers love to look down their nose at astrologers because they can't figure out how it works. I know I can't figure it out either, but it does. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of theories. If your microphone is on, you may want to mute it until it's time for you to talk to me. Give us better sound quality, please.
Am I muted?
You can tell if your name has a cross through the microphone on your bottom left. You can right-click on your name and choose mute, or go in your bottom left of the screen and do it. So anyhow, Markle started this pen. It gets started through him. He didn't mean to, but it went worldwide. Well, after all, it's coming from a professor. So I kept researching and researching. And I knew something was behind it because on the 4th of January, I got knocked over. I can feel when the collective mindset changes. I've been doing it so long, I can tell when it changes. I can tell recently when Asia Mea Culpa died. And then I find out 6 months later the authors pick it up. But when you're tuned to the archetypal level of astrology, you can feel these things. So anyhow, what had happened, I said to myself, well, what could cause something like this to happen? The only one planet that can cause this, Uranus, because Uranus is nutso. It's powerful, it's electric bolt, it's shocking, it's very sudden, it's disruptive, all the things. It had all the portraits of Uranus, right, Pat? Right, Uranus. So what is Uranus cycle? 84 years. 84 years. And believe me, when a Uranus gets to 21 and 42 and 63 and 84, it's a big deal. It's why you have a midlife crisis. etc. So I went back to 84, and I got to 1927, and I said, well, what happened in 1927? So I started looking around, saying, well, maybe Uranus is back where it was in 1927, and when a planet returns, it's very shocking and things happen. So what happened? I got to, I'll get the hang of this soon here. In 1927, the Solvay Conference. Do you see a picture of all these guys? This is when quantum mechanics was given to the public. This is Einstein in the middle. This is Madame Curie. This is Schrodinger. This is Heisenberg. This is Max Planck. This is all your great physicists at the time in 1927. It had been forming from Max Planck's theories in 1905. So these were guys that were actually arguing with Einstein because he really didn't go very well with believing in quantum mechanics. So in 1927, what happened was they made this evident in the scientific community. And all of a sudden, if you've studied quantum mechanics, you might as well tell, what's the guy, the apple on the head? Darwin, not Darwin, but I can't remember names.
Newton, Isaac Newton.
Newton, and I get them mixed up. Newton, it did away with Newton's mechanics. Well, now you've got an uncertain principle. Now you have Schrodinger there. You've got Heisenberg there, the author of the uncertainty principle, etc. They're all there. But what happened was, 84 years later, we were ready to hear this. So the shock was the return in the chart of the Solvay Conference, and I'll show you that. I'm still learning my little tools here. So in 1927, here you see Jupiter and Uranus together in late Pisces, early Aries. 84 years later, here's Uranus and Jupiter back together exactly that day on January 4th, 2011. They conjuncted close enough. They were back in the same spot with Uranus and Jupiter where it had happened and occurred in 1927. Now, Uranus took 84 years to come around. That was your main power. But Jupiter is 7 cycles, 12 years each. 7 Jupiters equal 1 Uranus. And on the day that they conjuncted again, that was the January 4th that sent the shockwaves through the planet. And it was all about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and quantum mechanics were now jumping up a level. Just like an atom jumps, an electron jumps to another level of an orbit within the atom. And I knew that's what I felt. And what that meant, because you have to take in the nature of Jupiter and Uranus. Jupiter is social ideas. Uranus is shocking, it's scientific. Put the two together. Boom. All of a sudden on that day, and if you look back, as of 2011, the word quantum has become a daily word. It's now a household word. Since that moment, in other words, it was a quaint theory. It was a theory we talked about, we wrote about. But now you see it in everywhere. Quantum psychology, quantum energy, quantum soup, quantum everything. Because it's opening the door to us being spaceless. It's opening the door to two particles being across the universe, but there's really no space between them. And they're the same particle. So I'm not going to get into all the quantum physics, But that's what happened. And I wrote to Richard Tarnas about it. Tarnas is one of the greatest minds that's ever come along in astrology. He's the author of the Bible called Cosmos and Psyche, 30 years to write. He's a brilliant philosopher out in California. And he said, I'm aware of the return of Jupiter and Uranus too. He did not think that I was finding something that exquisite and that definitive, and I disagree with it. I think I did. But I found that on that day, we entered another octave. So that's what caused the shockwave, was the Jupiter and Uranus coming back to the same spot. That's why your Saturn returns are big, when they come back to the same spot. Or Jupiter, when it comes back every 12 years, these different orbits. I'm going to give a class here some night in all the suborbits of all the planets, and you'll be able to see why we have stress in their marriage at 7, why we have revolution at age 21, midlife crisis at 42, a second Saturn return at 58. You'll understand these things. One of the things that's confusing about astrology is they're all going on at the same time, and if you're not sharp and see them all, they look confusing. So what happened was it stirred up the wave of all these people with semi-astrological thoughts. So they said, my God, it must be the 13th sign, which has always been a story. And in Eastern astrology, some sidereal astrologers, that means star astrologers, those astrologers go by the constellations. Western astrology, like I do, has very little to do with the constellations. I know it's confusing, but it's not for now to explain it. It's very complex. But I understand that sidereal astrologers, some of them use 13 signs. Different story. So that's what started the panic. And everybody, they came out with their adjusted zodiac, and everybody started panicking, but they're panicking over the wrong thing. So that's what caused the wave, the chaotic wave. That's what Uranus does, causes chaos. But the real meaning behind it was quantum mechanics, boom, was delivered to your brain skull. It was boom. It was just like a lightning bolt that hit the collective mind and said, I'm here to stay for good and deal with it. That's how powerful it was. And it's socialized because it's Jupiter. Those two planets were exact that day. And they were on the same point of where they were approximately 84 years earlier. So then what happens? We start to hear all these stories about the 13th sign, and we find out that the 12 signs are really accurate, that the people don't want to give up their signs. And the real reason that astrology is based on 12 is because there are 3 qualities. This is all covered in this book. There are 3 qualities in the zodiac. Cardinal signs, they are leaders. That's your Aries, Libras, Cancers, Capricorns. These are your generators. Then you have 4 of the second group called fixed. Those are your fixers. They accumulate, they intensify, they organize. That's your Tauruses, your Scorpios, your Aquarians, and your Leos. Their job is not to start or distribute, but to fix things, to give depth to. The next group, these are general, is the last group called mutables. That's your Pisces, Virgos, Gemini, Sag. Their job is to take it and give it out. What the cardinals start, the fixers fix, the mutables give it out. Geminis, Pisces give it out, Sagittarians, and Virgos. So when you take the 3 of one group, that group, and you look at the 4 of the fire, earth, air, water, the 4 elements, And you take 4 times 3, you get 12. And it cannot be any other way, period. It has to be 12. So that's how the 13th sign got all energized and all neurotic about it. But what was really going on was the quantum agitation hit us, and we didn't know how to deal with it. So then they may as well, since us astrologers are so nonsensical, they deliver this story about how there's 2 different zodiacs, and there are. One's a sidereal zodiac, which means by the stars. One is a Western astrology, which is what we use, which is called tropical. Let me explain that to you, and I'm going to keep it kind of simple. Astronomers and Eastern astrologers use the star zodiac according to the constellations. So when you're born in the middle of Scorpio, if I stop everything and I draw a line through the sun, it intersects the middle of Scorpio. That's how they model things, by the constellations. We don't. Now I'll explain to you why. The zodiac is always moving. In the year 0, the 2 zodiacs lined up. 2,000 years before Christ, Western astrologers on spring were always 0 Aries. Always, every year we're 0 Aries, because we cheat and we turn the zodiac around. We move it. Every spring forever, us tropical astrologers are always at 0 Aries. You always say, welcome to spring, welcome to summer. Yesterday we went into fall. Because we move the zodiac. Astronomers are different. Astronomers are what are you lined up with what part of that constellation. In the year 0, they both match. In the year 2000, these ages are approximately 2,000 years. We've been in the age of Pisces since Christ, the 2 fishes, approximately 2,050 years, we're leaving the sign of Pisces, the age of Pisces, to enter the age of Aquarius. That's what it means. Collectively, the whole planet's been going for 2,000 years with this imprint of Pisces. That's why you had the 4,000 years before Christ, the age of Taurus, and the age of Aries, which was the age of killing and pillaging and raping and stealing, and it was a brutal time. Now that we're so civilized, we don't have to worry about it anymore. Right, Suzanne? Since we're all civilized now. So when the age of Pisces came, it was huge that Jesus brought with him the age of being peaceful and thinking of your brother. The mindset started to change. Doesn't mean you conquer it right away, but now that we've been backing up through Aquarius, we're almost to the point where we're 1 sign different. So next spring, on the first day of spring, astrologers will always be at 0 Aries because we move the zodiac. Astronomers will be back at the end of Pisces, at the beginning of Pisces, just about to go into Aquarius. So since the year 0, every 72 years, that zodiac moves by 1 degree. Now, why? It's because of what's called the precession of the equinoxes. In other words, the larger zodiac that we're following is moving around a greater sun itself. And in the year 6, let's get this right now. In the year 6,000, this cycle takes about 25,000 years. 25,000 years to complete. So in the year 12,500, you'll wake up on spring and you will be at 0 Aries for astrology. and you will be at the beginning of the sign of Libra on spring. The two zodiacs will be as far apart as possible. So they're two different zodiacs. The astrologers didn't get it wrong. What I'm telling you is astrology, the one I do, is related to the moment of spring. If you are a Libra and you are born halfway through the zodiac, all that means is you're born 6 months after the moment of spring. It has nothing to do with being lined up with the constellation Libra. Nothing. It's all based upon the moment of spring. Capricorn, you are the 10th sign of the zodiac. The beginning Capricorns are 3/4 of the way through. When Capricorn comes every year, we are 3/4 of the year exactly after the moment of spring and 1/4 of the year from a new spring. So that's how it worked. That's how people got confused. That's how they use it as another tool to make astrologers look bad. But that's how the 13th sign came about. That's how the two zodiacs keep getting thrown in our face. And I hope that makes some sense to you. And I can't give it to you any clearer than that. Grace is applauding. Thank you, thank you. So when you hear about we're halfway through the year and we're starting into the sign of Libra, that means you're halfway, you're 6 months exactly after the moment of spring. And what is spring? Spring is the exact moment when day and night are equal. Exact. It's got nothing to do with the constellation of the scales out there. That's the astronomers. And that's how they keep putting us down, because we're out of sync with them. Well, after the year 25,000, we'll be back in sync again. So that's how the two zodiacs work. And that's why in the original story, you don't have to worry about your sun sign. It's never going to change, ever. Okay? Now, any questions on that part? Unmute your microphone. Feel free if you have any questions.
Rick?
Yeah.
How do you spell the name of that conference that they had?
Solvay, S-O-V, S-O-V, S-O-L-V-A-Y. S-O-L-V-A-Y. And that's where the minds came together and they decided this is real, this is it. That was a huge revolution in physics. And so if you see things as a spiral, what happened is 84 years later, we revisited, but we were higher. So what happened in 1927 is we made a huge leap. But 84 years later, we made an even bigger leap. Now, in the scientific community, look what's happened. Look how many books everywhere. I'll ask Nancy Hoffman, the psychologist, this. Look how many books everywhere talking about quantum mechanics, quantum physics. It's what's happening. I have an illness, and Nancy calls me on the telephone, and she taps on parts of her body, and I get healed. I'm not making this up.
No, I know.
I'm not going to go into great detail, because there, even though she and I are across the city of Pittsburgh, there is no space.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
She'll work on me and not even tell me what she's doing, and she solves it. That's why I told you that I sensed this coming in the last 5 years. This is no longer the age of just energy. My God, talk to Karen DeBerry. Oh, you heard for 20, 30 years, energy, energy, energy. What are you? I'm an energy worker. I'm a Reiki worker. I'm an energy worker. Blah, 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 blah. Well, below energy is intention. Intention, you can't touch it. There's nothing there. With energy, there's something there.
Right.
At the finer level, at the quantum level, There's intent. That's how Nancy heals me. Also, you probably felt this before, and I'm not going to get voodoo on you. You can tell when somebody's mad at you. Sometimes you can feel when somebody's messing with you psychically. And I believe it. When they're sending you ill intent, you had better put your shock absorbers up. Go ahead, Nancy. You had your hand up. Go ahead. What do you want to say about that? Nancy, did you freeze on me? Her camera froze. We'll wait for her to get back. Yeah, Pat.
Rick,
Yeah.
I just got a problem with my internet connection. I could hardly.
It's okay. We'll try to join us in a few minutes because, as usual, your microphone is lower. Patricia, did you have a comment, please?
Yeah, I did have a comment. This is blowing my mind.
Oh, it almost knocked me on the floor. I felt it. I was by myself.
2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 days ago, that when they came together again, conjunct, that's 1 degree.
They didn't come together 2-3 days ago.
Well, when are you referring
What
to?
happened 2 or 3 days ago is we had an eclipse and Mars got involved and it shook up the zodiac, some subcycles of subcycles. I'm referring to January the 4th of 2011.
Yeah, okay.
That's the day that Professor Markle put that article out, and 7 days later, I figured it out.
Okay, and I'm looking back in time 2 or 3 days ago, prompted by Hotmail, which may throw me out. So I went into it and printed out this whole dialogue with a friend who was teaching me quantum physics.
Right. Hard to grasp.
And I'm sitting here with my mind blown because it's so common to think about now.
Right, but it was because of the leap that we took in 2011.
Exactly.
That's what made it more acceptable to our mindsets.
And that leap was 1 degree from my Jupiter at 28.
Oh my God, that's huge. Now I forgot to write this down, all of you. Excuse me. Before I forget, this is explained in great detail on paper. If you go to my website and go to newsletters by subject, and look up Ophiuchus. OPH, that's all you got to know. OPH, and that will lead you to newsletter number 70.
Okay.
Go to read my newsletter 70, and you will find this entire article about this whole thing I just talked about. So you can print it out, and it's explained very slowly. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, that was it. I just sat here, printed out all these things, and realized, oh my God, what I have learned about quantum physics since 2011.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Huge, yeah.
And I want to hear more from Nancy because she works with the daily as a healer. Is your microphone better, Nancy? You need to tilt your camera down a little, honey.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. What did you have to say? Because I know it's a hot subject with you.
Well, I can't really explain it, but I think that at the deepest essence, everything is energy.
And everything's one.
It's
There's only one thing.
all one big thing. And it really is a remarkable thing. And what you were saying about intention,
Right.
I've learned something about how to set intention.
Right.
Before you go to bed at night, the best time, because then you're going to sleep on it, you write down the life you want to create.
Right.
And you don't use any negative words at all. You don't say, for example, I want to stop biting my nails.
Right.
Because if you say that, you're creating nail biting. Instead, you say, my nails are long and beautiful, or something like that. I have wonderful relationships with my family. I am in complete health. I have peace of mind. You write down what you want in the present tense as though it already is there.
Right.
And no negative terminology. And setting that intent
Is doing.
an enormous way to creating it.
And that's why we got hit. What else happened in the past 10 years? The Secret. What the bleep. These revolutionary ideas and thought forms, all in the same vicinity here.
From What the Bleep, that movie, that documentary, there was literally a bleep. It was just 30 seconds maybe,
right,
of a researcher from Japan, Masaru Emoto.
Right.
You know, messages in the water.
Right.
This Japanese researcher took vials, clear vials of water, all from the same source, and just put words on them. So that when you're looking at that vial, or maybe the words themselves, he wanted to see what the effect was. And then he would drop the temperature in the water, and crystals would form. And you honestly just look at the book. You have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, the love particles look like beautiful snowflakes.
Beautiful snowflake. And if you said something like, I hate you, it would get gnarled. And when you think about it, when you look at someone lovingly, your face becomes symmetrical.
Well,
When you're angry,
what's so beautiful about this is we're all starting to understand this. And this came about in January of 2011. We made a jump mentally in the collective mind. The people didn't understand it. The shockwave was out there, so it must be a 13th sign or something goofy.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There was a real interesting article in CNN on the science section. Quantum physicists from MIT have put out their findings that they speculate based on mathematical models that we're a computer simulation from another universe.
There's no doubt of that. That's the Matrix brought us that. We just don't understand it.
Yeah, well, that was in CNN.
Yeah, I saw your post on that. Let's move on to related topics now, and I'm going to show you how this filters down. And yes, someday we'll get into basic astrology, and I'll show you how the wheel works. But that'll happen when it happens, you know. I want to tell you about what happened yesterday. I was dealing with a woman on a reading, a very nice lady, a Libra woman, and she had just broken up with a Leo man who was not the right type of Leo. He was the wrong type of Leo, and they're both. This type of Leo she was his audience. That's all she was good for. She was being used. And I wrote in my book that people that have a lot of Libra and Scorpio are in danger because they put all their marbles in the basket of the relationship has to work. What's going to happen to the relationship fail? Well, their whole self-value system, there's too much when you have a Libra and Scorpio. Too much of your life is based upon whether this marriage lasts or this boyfriend lasts. Well, what if the guy moves? Well, you're in peril. So anyhow, we went to a long story. We dug it up why, and she was doing the right things. I want you to follow me now. She got out of the relationship, and there's nothing in the world that's better for you than getting out of a bad relationship. I mean, you set in motion the most unbelievably positive things, especially if you get out of it in a healthy way. Not without these middle fingers pointing, but you get out of it because you really want to do what's best for you. This guy's going to go on just find another audience. While this woman came to me and she was ready. People come to me when they're ready. That's what happens. I don't know why, but they're ready. They didn't used to. Maybe it's because I wasn't ready. I don't know why. So she's ready and things are getting better. She's getting jobs and she's getting better health. And their car is doing better and her house is doing better and everything's getting better. That's what happens when you let go of the junk. So I said to her, watch this now. I said, you're going to think I'm weird. Now, some of you have heard this. I said, you're not going to believe this, but the number one thing that matters is, are you in your basement cleaning out your basement? She did a backflip and screamed out loud. Ah! How did you know that? Now you see, this is very interesting because my mind and her mind are the same mind. She was freaking out because she's like most humans. She thinks she's over here and I'm over there. That's not how it is. That's not what Jesus was describing. That's not how it is. That's not what physicists are finding. That's what the new psychologists are finding. I knew it because I've seen it so many times. When you're down there cleaning out your basement, it's figurative. I mean, everybody wants to talk about their house and their garage and their car and the dog and the job and the boo-boos that they got and their money. I don't listen to it. I hear, what is your energy doing? What's happening to your energy? I got an energy worker I've been talking with recently. Just so talented with energy, but this person is an absolute mess energetically. What do you say? The vibrations from this person, they're like this. Well, what do you think's happening to this person's body? I don't have to tell you. I certainly don't have to even look at Karen DeBerry. She knows this person's falling apart. She's literally falling apart because she can't get her energy together. So anyhow, I tell her that people are in the basement cleaning out because it's symbolic that I don't want that junk in my heart anymore. When I was on the radio a lot in Pittsburgh, I'd get these calls. Oh, I'm going to move. When do you think I should move? I said, when the truck is moved, loaded, move. I don't care when you move. It doesn't matter. And this mid-50th astrologer knows when the magic planet gets there, move. Every time, especially women talk about their house and their curtains and the backyard and the painting. I mean, women are really, thank God, they're really good with the hums. That's their thing. Men are out knocking baseballs and golf balls and drinking beer, whatever they do. But I learned on that radio show that every time a person talks about their house, their curtains, waxing their floors, every time replace it with the word heart. Every time. My heart is too jammed. My heart is too dirty. My heart is too compressed. My heart is too spread out. That's what they're telling you. Now, they're not aware of it, like a Nancy Hoffman, an advanced thinker, but even the average person is getting there now. We all are. But they're saying, I don't want the dirt anymore. I lived in this dirt with you. I lived in this bad relationship with you. I want the dirt out. And not only that, I want every piece out. I mean, Karen, you know all about that, about cleansing down to the bone. That's what's happening to America. And today I wrote an article for our magazine up here by one of our own, Susan Rose. She has a magazine up here called Bodhi Tree, and I'm her astrologer. I wrote an article today about the USA being stuck in stage 1, and I got an article on my website you should read and become familiar with. All of you have been through Pluto transits. It's called The 4 Stages of Pluto. The USA is stuck in stage 1, and about half of us are now in stage 2. Stage 1 is, I know it seems like something's wrong. Oh, it's my imagination. It'll go away. We're America. It'll go away. Right, Suzanne? We're America. It's going to go away. Stage 2 is, oh, it ain't going away. It's ugly. It's bad. Corruption everywhere. We got to fix it. And while we're talking about fixing it, 5 more things we're finding out are corrupt. So we got a mess, and stage 2 is ugly, and it's dirty, and there's no light, and it's hard, and it's very threatening. And you got to do it. Stage 2, the prerequisite is being introspective and saying, well, maybe all of this or a large part of this is because of my actions. Taking ownership. Then you start to cleanse. All you Virgos know about this. Then you start to cleanse and get rid of the junk. That's why the lady was in the basement. She's a Libra. She wants things pretty and all that. Well, why didn't she clean her basement 6 months ago? She wasn't ready. But now she is. And I'll tell you, when you clean that basement, everything comes your way. And what I wanted to bring this up for, the reason tonight, is when I have a conversation like this with my girlfriend, who's an astrologer, we understand at a very high level what's happening. The person I was talking to didn't really understand. She just thought it was, oh, that's shocking. How did you know that? How weird, Rick. How weird. And the word everybody uses is funny. Wow, that's funny. And I wrote an article one day. If they don't say that's funny, then I'm worried. When they say it's funny, that means I'm tickling them at the archetypal level. That's how I know what's happening. I'm not a magician. I understand the archetypal forces that are there. Now, you people are all the kind of people that are very easy to read for. You, the poets, the musicians, the artists. Why? Because you all sense your muse. You hear your muse. You feel the vibe. You may have a little hard time with it. You may get a little bit knocked off center, but you're open to it. Well, look back in the days of Leave It to Beaver. He wasn't aware of what was going on with the archetypes. Little kids went to school to came home, and that was it. You were role defined. Now we're all becoming more and more aware of the archetypes shifting. And the archetypes are what happens when Pluto moves through, what happens when Uranus moves through, etc. So my point of all this, and I think Patricia Sharp is going to do a whole lot of nodding up and down. Do you realize what this woman was really saying? What she was really saying when she said, man, that's funny. It means there's a tappable level of knowledge, of mind. Now, don't get goofy like some of these New Agers. I mean, you're there, and you're there, and you're there, and you're there, and we are separate. But we're also one. That's how you could go to a theater and you can be breathless and there's not a sound and a tiny little action will happen on the theater and the whole collective mindset will go, like one mind, one heart. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Now, these other astrologers, God bless them, they're learning about what Mars does in the second house. They're learning about compatibility between a Scorpio and a Taurus. They're learning all the pieces. But eventually, you start to move up the ladder and you start to see archetypally what's happening. So when I do a reading, you know what I want to do someday? I'm really not sure yet how. I want to pick one of you, and I'm going to do a complete reading of you on the air in this group. I'm going to show you what I'm thinking, what I'm looking at, why I'm asking the questions, and I'm going to walk you through how it happens. And you'll be blown away. It's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable to watch the person unfold in front of you. Now, what I started to bring up about the Bodhi tree is I finally realized today when I wrote that article, I didn't think anybody in the United States, Suzanne, she and I are very close because we complain about similar issues. I didn't think the United States would see stage 3. Stage 3 is we're starting to do so much work that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But what did we just do with EpiPen? We kicked their ass. Huh? She may be the leader out here, Suzanne. She's out there, say something, do something. And now who knows what the reason why Americans love to sit back and just say nothing and let these things happen and let these black guys get shot in the street and let all these things happen. I mean, there are many reasons why, but look what we did with the EpiPen. Why did your insurance provider get $250 per pen? I'm not talking about the company, your provider. How did they write that one off? So we're standing up, Elizabeth Warren's standing up to Wall Street. We're starting to see signs of stage 3. Stage 3 is we're fighting back. We're cleaning out the dirt. She gets in the face of the CEO at Wall Street and says, you should resign.
Yeah, he should.
She got more balls than a whole football team. A woman. And she's got them. She's tough, strong. She didn't sell out. So what I think is, and I'm sure Nancy would agree here, this is new thinking. I think we have to be shocked into this Pluto return coming our way in 2023. This Pluto return of one orbit of Pluto in the USA's chart is threatening to destroy us. People, yes, you're right, Mark. People not standing for the national anthem. Not standing for rote items. We want what's real, and we better shift to these kind of thinkings, because at the same time that we're being deconstructed, we have to think of constructive ways to rebuild, or else there will not be a rise of Rome again. There won't be a rise of Athens again. We'll just go by the dust. And we are, whether we like it or not, we are the leaders of the mindsets of the planet. So I started to reason, I think we're starting to see the beginnings of some stage 3. And I want to assure you of the 100th monkey. Anybody here doesn't understand the 100th monkey? Anybody that doesn't know? Okay. On these South Pacific islands, I guess in the 50s, they found some monkeys, and the monkeys loved sweet potatoes, and the sweet potatoes were covered in sand. So one monkey would take it out and shake it in the water and get the sand off and eat it. So the next thing you know, they watch each other. There's 10 of them, then there's 20 of them. What they found, this is theoretical, after 100 monkeys did it on separate islands.
Yeah.
They all did it.
Yeah.
Quantum mechanics. After the 100th monkey theory is enough of us doing, so we don't have to go out and talk all of the 150 million people that are going to vote for Trump. We don't have to talk them into, hey, you shouldn't do that. We just got to become more based on truth ourselves, a small percentage, and we represent the 100th monkey to the rest of society.
Okay.
Come on, Suzanne. I know you got a lot to say.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Rick. It is within each one of us. And I think it's happening all over the place. You know, people just don't know what to do. They don't know who to vote for. And, you know, every day is a different scenario that unfolds before us. You know, I wrote in the Bodhi tree myself, and I wrote that everything, in a way, I was hinting that everything was dying. Well, what do you do before you die? The swan actually sings a beautiful song before the swan dies.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and also I put in the poem by Dylan Thomas about rage against, you know, the dying of the light. But really, in essence, the article was about become truly who you are right now. Try to do that. If you're an activist, then go out there and be a good activist. If you are a meditator, then meditate for world peace. We really need everybody right now.
That's stage 3, and that's why one of the number one things beside Wall Street that's got to come down is the current thinking of churches. I'm not going against Jesus. I mean, I'm all for everything he said, but it's the interpretation. Did you know that I think Liza talked about it on here. I'm not sure. She's not with us tonight. Did you hear her talk about the crucifix was not even invented or shown till the year 900? Did she tell you that? That was an invention during the Constantine times, because you got this man up here suffering on a cross, and you should feel bad. There was no cross. There were no cross symbols until the year 900. 900 years. So what I'm saying that And I'm definitely pro-God, believe in God, believe in Jesus. Yes, but I'm not into this anymore, these rules. You've got to have this big rule set on you or else you can't go anywhere. Well, what we're seeing now with the death of mea culpa, we're seeing now when you take these guilt hair shirts off of us and these thorns off of our head, we can breathe and we feel better and we naturally treat each other good. So we have to disassemble and deconstruct the church influence and replace it with a true spirituality, which is a true honoring of God and God within, etc. Well, you know what I'm saying to you. And that's very hard to deliver that without sounding like the apocalypse or sounding like the 666, you know, because people are touchy and everybody believes they're in the right group. I'm in the right clique and you're not. So that's what this is all about tonight during our little fireside chat. And I don't see any fireplaces anywhere. I wonder if we'll get one. I wonder if we'll get one during the winter months. I'll bet you somebody will sneak a fireplace. Hey, Seth, I'm looking at you over there. I'm looking at you, and you're new to the group. Hi, Amy. Seth, what's on your mind? I have a lot to say about Virgos. I have great faith and belief in Virgos. I think Virgos are very misunderstood. What's on your mind?
I'm not really sure. I'm not really much of a Virgo, though. I have my sun is the only Virgo placement I have. Basically, everything else is in Leo. I have like 5 planets in
Well,
Leo.
that's okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, good. And that's why I should write that book about Leo Virgo.
Yeah, I was actually wondering about that.
What it is, you know, one guy on stage is saying, shut up, and the Leo says, I want to sing. And the Virgo tells the Leo, well, don't sing too loud, you're showing off. And the Leo says, oh, come on, loosen up, you start singing. Well, both those voices want to be heard. And when you go on stage, they're going to both come, not one, both. And you have to harmonize the two. That's what's happening. So I don't care what planets are where. How are you feeling today with what you've heard? Why are you here? Astrology, etc.
I think a lot of what you talked about today, I've actually heard little bits and pieces everywhere. It's definitely in the zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist, right.
Yeah, I work with the public, so I hear a lot of people talk about little things and they don't really know what they're talking about, but I tend to know a little bit more than them, so it's nice to kind of be surrounded by people who know more than me. But it's definitely out there. Like, you know what I mean? There's definitely people that you would never expect just sitting around having conversations like
it's happening. Yep.
You know what I mean? And they work at an office or they work at somewhere else, and it's just
it's happening.
Yeah, everyday people are having conversations.
Well,
like that.
welcome. This is a very good group. There's some very good, strong minds here.
Oh, yeah, it seems like it. I've watched a few on YouTube.
I wanted you to know that, too, just in case. If you miss, I'm going to shut off the recording in a second. These will be put on the following day on YouTube by the date. I haven't gone to using episode numbers yet. Karen DeBerry, this is unusual for you to remain silent this long. What's on your mind? You have a lot of Leo and Virgo.
I definitely believe that your knowledge of those two planets, and because it's what opened the world, as you know, for me. Because
that's right. What she's talking about is she's a Leo, and when I read for 10 years ago, I made her understand that she also has a lot of Leo and Virgo. And there's a great example, Seth. Karen was able to resurrect them both and have them work together, and she's worked very well with those two energies since then.
Yeah, it really did wonders for me. The thing is, when I took the first energy courses from somebody that really understood it, I took it in Seattle, Washington at Bastyr University. And I saw a shaman out there, and she told me that I had a lot of, they talk about totems and animals, and she told me that I had a lot of conflicting animals that most people never had, and that I needed to learn how to work with the energies of those animals to get them to be functional. And so that's what I did. And I started doing a lot of things to bring those together. But what you did for me was you kind of put the period at the end of what I'd been struggling with.
Well, that's really good. And yesterday I was working with a woman that says, my son has retardation problem. My son has C slow, whatever the word she's using. I looked at the chart. I said, no, that's not what your son's doing. Your son's past life, he's got so many rules back there. He's so afraid to move and break these rules. That's what's wrong with him. Mm-hmm. We go nuts. Who was it that just said, I have these conflicting energies? How many? I just wrote today to Alan Oaken, one of the greatest astrologers ever. Dare he talk about Jupiter being in the great benefic? When are we going to come out of the dark ages? There's not a planet out there that's a good guy. Saturn's a bad guy. And boy, I got a Leo Virgo fight. This is all hype, and this is Fox News of astrology. Your energies are exactly where they need to be, period. They're exactly where your soul needs to be there. And don't get all excited when you read some book. Oh, she got a Venus opposite Saturn. She'll never get married. And all these things make you panic. And when you're a young astrologer, it's very tough. Because you read these things, oh my God, that's why I studied astrology. My astrologer, before I studied, more or less said I was going to die during my Saturn return. It was that bad at age 28, and I was 21. Oh my God, it's going to be that bad? Then I studied, and I realized she shouldn't be reading for anybody. You know what I mean, Nancy? You see this in your work, Susan, Seth, all of you. How many, let's hear from somebody new here. Amy, Christy, how many of you come up against these? I'm gonna turn the recording off for now. We'll say goodbye for this episode to everybody.